is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Had a small 4-game slate yesterday. Edmonton goalies are who we thought they were.
I mean, listen, I'm not going to absolve Skinner here. If you go back and watch those Washington goals, one after another, it's Edmonton constantly missing defensive zone assignments. Like, just repeatedly. This is some 2017 Edmonton Oilers defense going on this year. I have no idea why that is, but it is what it is.
Yep. You needed you needed John Carlson. You probably needed Tom Wilson, who had 2.6 DK points through 59 minutes. Then he had a block and 2 empty net goals. Who else did really well?
I mean, Rasmus Anderson had a 3-point night.
Darnell
Nurse, a couple goals. Ryan Leonard, a couple goals.
Man,
if you Josh stack Washington, I mean, you had Wilson with 2 defensemen. You probably did well. Unfortunately, I Josh stacked the Ducks. That didn't go well.
Yeah, same. I completely lost my train of thought, but that one of those Ryan Leonard goals was nasty. I think it was his second one. But we have a 12-game slate here tonight. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. Relegate the Sabres. Jesus Christ, man. Giving up 6 goals to a Flames team back-to-back on the road who scored like 4 goals in the last 38 games combined. It's like – anyway, big slate here. Not too many giant totals, not too many giant mismatches. There's a couple of chalky spots. Nothing egregious where it's just like, man, like if you fade them and they go off, your night's ruined. There hopefully will be multiple paths to victory here tonight. Your Habs on the slate, my Rangers on the slate. What are you seeing on this slate?
Yeah, I think your point about the chalkiness is probably a good one. Like, there's no line here today that's like, I mean, maybe one of the Islanders lines when we get an update, because I don't think Anders Lee's going to be on the second line. But other than maybe that one Islanders line, there's nothing that's like 2% top 2 stack, 14% ownership or something like that, right? Like, it's all fairly spread out. Like, you know, there are 5 stacks that are all double-digit ownership between 11 and 13%, and all 5 stacks are between 11 and 13% top 2 stacks. So, like, there's nothing, you know, like when the Nashville Predators are at home and they're like 14K perfectly correlated, and you're like, do I have to play? Like, there's nothing like that. So it's pretty wide open. Some teams are fairly banged up. Some teams have some pretty significant line changes. We'll get to the Toronto game in a second. So, I kind of like this slate because it really does seem like it's wide open. You can go just about anywhere and do just about anything.
Yep. And before we get started, we have a $20 super chat from Brandon, one of our mainstays in our Discord. He says, for Josh and Cliffy's Chandler Stevenson hate fund, I can say unequivocally, I completely butchered that word, that fund is never empty. But thank you for the super chat. That gets replenished. We get bailed out by Big Pharma almost every day to keep the Chandler Stevenson hate going. But thank you for the super chat.
Yeah, certainly appreciate the support, Brandon. Thank you very much for the super chat. Chandler Stevenson is on this slate. I feel confident saying he's not going to be in my lineup, but you know, they are playing the Chicago Blackhawks. We'll see what happens. But yeah, thanks for the support. Certainly appreciate it.
There are 2 guys that if they go off, I'll never win. Chandler Stevenson's one of them. Jordan Staal is the other. Not that I hate Jordan Staal. It's just like he just doesn't score, except for that random night he'll have like a 3-point game with a shorthanded goal at 4% for no reason. And you're just like, well, see you later. But let's get into this slate. Let's kick it off with those Islanders, 2.8 total heading into Detroit. The Wings have a 3.2 total. The lines we have in top stacks, I think, are going to be different on the Islanders side. right? I don't think it's Lee on the second line.
Yeah, it's Simon Holmstrom on
Holmstrom's back, right? So Lee's back down on the third line with JG Pajot and Duclair. The top line still Horvat, Palmieri, Heineman, and then it's Barzal, Drouin, and Simon Holmstrom. Detroit sticking with that loaded up top line of DeBrincat, Larkin, Raymond. Patrick Kane on the top power play plays on the second line. I'm getting better at just cutting lines off now. Interestingly enough, like Detroit's one of two lines. Even though we have 24 teams playing, there's only two lines over 20K. Detroit one is one of them. Listen, this is a really good matchup for them. Really good 5-on-5, really good power play. They are 21K flat. They have come down in price by a couple $100. 17.9% top two stacks, 7.7% projected ownership. A little bit surprising at that low ownership, considering like the other chalky lines. There's a couple in the 16,000 range, there's a couple in the 17 and a couple in the 18s that neither of the lines above 20K are really getting much ownership. There are like 21K is expensive, don't get me wrong. But if you punt a defenseman, you can fit them in with like $13,000 and $14,000 lines, $15,000 lines if you really want to go down to the nitty gritty with one of your defensemen. So it's like it's not super price prohibitive to the point where like you're playing, Matt Rempe or something in your lineup. You can get decent second stack in there. This is a very good matchup for them. So I do like Detroit one here, where I didn't really love them the other night on an 8-game slate. Like the ownership is better on a 12-game slate here. It's a better matchup. So I think I'm in on Detroit one. You want to add in Patty Kane or one off Patty Kane because he's on the power play, that's fine. But Detroit one or bust for me. I guess you could say Detroit power play as well. On the Islanders side, the Detroit defense pairing really just have one pair, and it's the Evanson Sider pairing, and they're going to be occupied with Horvat, Palmieri, Heineman. I don't particularly love the Islanders second line, Barzal, Drouin, and Holmstrom. And they're coming in with a lot of negative leverage. But as Cliffy alluded to last slate, like Barzal and Drouin get pretty good minutes, especially Barzal. They're both on the top power play unit. This line is cheap. The only thing holding me back is like, do I really want to play a 9% Islanders second line on a 12-game slate on the road? And in my brain, there's lots of red flashing lights saying no. But like, if anything on the Islanders side, I think it would be that second line. You want to go to the third line as a filler. Like, it's fine. Like, Lee and Pajot have been fine together. Like, Duclair is having an awful season, so you could leave him off if you want. So for me, it's Detroit one, Detroit power play, and then the Islanders second line. Like, the Islanders top line of Horvat, Palmieri, Heineman at 14.7 is fine. It's not like they're 17K or something. So like at that price, if they get into your MME mix, I think they're fine to leave it. But I like in single entry, if I was going to play Islanders, it'd be some sort of Barzal stack.
Yeah. On the Islanders side, I am out on Horvat. Like going into that Sider Evanson pairing is it's just a really bad matchup. In fact, I was looking at Detroit's defensive numbers over their last 10 games. Sider and Evanson are around 2 to 2.1 expected goals against. Every other defenseman's between 2.5 and 3.5 expected goals against. Like, it's night and day. So I'm out on Islanders one. Islanders two is where I would go. And it was nice to see Holmstrom back on that second line because, that second line's been, they've at least created well. They haven't produced tremendously. They're at 3 expected goals per 60 with Holmstrom on that second line, but they're shooting around 5%. Like, that's the problem. The other problem is like Detroit doesn't take a ton of penalties, and their penalty kill is certainly better than it was last year. 2.9 times shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. I'm okay with Islanders too. Like, I'm not running out to play them. Detroit's secretly pretty good defensively. So then you have to rely on the depth lines. And it's like, do I really want to play Jonathan Drouin over on the road on a 12-game slate? Like, it's probably a pass. So if anything from the Islanders, it's the Islanders second line, but that's it. The question is what to do with Detroit, because that top line, like, they're really good last year. Obviously, they've been really good again this year when they played together. 4.1 expected goals, 74 shot attempts per 60 minutes. You know, playing 19 to 21 minutes, like at the high end, you'll get Larkin at 21 minutes. Over their last 10 games, all three of them are between 19 and 24 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Like, they're all shooting quite a bit. And the Islanders are obviously a fairly poor defensive team at 5-on-5. They have a fairly poor penalty kill. And you mentioned being able to put in a punt defenseman with them, like Axel Sandin is 2,900. So exactly, you can put the three-man top line with Sandin and it's under 24K. Like, that's pretty good for what is a very, very good 5-on-5 spot and a power play spot. Like, this Islanders team, you know, on the penalty kill, rather, it's just not been good. I mean, basically at any point in Patrick Waugh's tenure, like, I don't know why at one point they were decent. Like, the goals against numbers aren't terrible, but it's because of a 915 save percentage. Like, you can't rely on that. They do give up shots. They do give up expected goals. I really like Detroit 1. The one thing is, like, I have a hard time leaving Patty Kane off. Like, he's not getting a ton of ice time, but he's averaging 3 shots per game, even on this, playing most of the season on the second line.
He's like Walmart Cutter Gauthier right now.
I mean, Walmart's generous. But either way, I really do like Detroit 1. If you want to just make it a full power play stack, I think that's doable just because Sandin is so cheap. You know, Patty Kane's only 5,600, so you can stack the entire power play for under 30K. That seems pretty good to me. So easily my favorite thing in this game is Detroit 1, and they are one of my top lines on the board.
Before we move on, we have a $2 super chat. This dude's trying to get me to read emojis here. I'm almost 40, man. Like, I need my kid to help me out here. For the Red Bull and Smoke and Cookie Fund. Seems like you need it for the Red Bull and Cookie Fund, but thank you for the $2 super chat. You're always in the YouTube chat hanging out, so thank you for the support.
Yeah, certainly appreciate it. I really, it's nice to always see you in chat, and it's funny that the Cookie Fund is there because, man, did I ever stress eat a lot of cookies during the World Series. Like, I was downing a half dozen a game easily. Glad that stopped now, but I mean, cookies, I think an underrated dessert by the adult crowd, but you know, that's neither here nor there. I certainly appreciate the support. Thanks for the super chat.
Yeah. For some reason, my wife bakes cookies every Wednesday night to bring to work on Thursday. And she made these like peanut butter cookies and she put Hershey Kisses on top. And she left like a dozen for me and Spencer. They were gone by 7:30 this morning. But yeah, cookies, very underrated. New Jersey Devils with a 2.6 total heading into Florida. The Panthers have a 3 total. Florida going Marchand, Lundell, Samoskevich, Reinhart, Rodriguez, Bachwist, Verhage, Bennett, Greer. I hate those lines with a fiery passion. Devils going Bratt, Hischer, Grietzuk. Timo plays on the second line. So, man, the Devils looked awful the other night against Detroit. Or it wasn't Detroit. Whoever they were playing.
Tampa, wasn't it?
Tampa, yeah. I mean, the top line looked okay, but after that, man, they just got run out of the rink. That being said, like, that top line here tonight is 16,200, 1.6% projected ownership. They're fully correlated. Like, Florida's a good defensive team. I don't particularly love these lines for Florida. I'm not really sure what they're trying to accomplish. I think, you know, Paul Maurice does this from time to time, try to get his team a little bit. He can run 3 or 4 lines more comfortably. On the Devils side, like, I don't have a ton of interest in the Devils, but it would be that top line. I think it's an MME play at 16,200, 1.6% projected ownership. That's really the only line that I have interest in. Like, Hischer and Grietzuk, they have good offensive numbers together. Jesper Bratt's not going to make them worse. So, you know, you could do worse than them at 16,000. And like the 2.6 total is more indicative of their depth than that top line. So like if they go above their total here tonight, that top line is definitely going to be heavily involved. So I don't mind them. On the Florida side, these lines are just weird. I guess it would be Lundell, Marchand, Samoskevich at 15-1, 4.6% top two stack, 5.4% projected ownership. You know, they'll probably avoid that Nico Hischier line. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, the Devils' blue line has been pretty bad. Their goaltending hasn't been great. It would be that Florida line for me. I don't particularly love Rodriguez, Reinhart, Bachquist, but like Sam Reinhart's their best player. So I think one-offing Sam Reinhart is completely fine. I don't mind going down to a two-man of Bennett Verhaeghe. Like the problem is with these lines, like they're just going to split minutes. And that's the biggest problem that I have with them, I think. So like I'll just go to a line that I have a fair bit of confidence that at least Lundell and Marchand will stick together. Mackie Samoskevich stayed there for the whole game the other night after E2 Lusterine went out with that barbecue injury. So, like, I have confidence that line should stick together. Maybe Verhaeghe moves up with Bachquist if they're having a rough game. So, like, it would be Florida 1, New Jersey 1. But honestly, I think my favorite thing in this game is just like a Reinhart one-off.
Yeah, in general, I mean, maybe this will come back to bite me. I don't really have a ton of interest in Florida. Like Jesper Bachquist, he's a fourth liner. That's just the way it is. AJ Greer, he's a fourth liner. Like they're doing this because of all the injuries. Like, let's face it, they're missing their top line center, their second line right winger and their third line center / winger. So they're just missing a lot of players. At least Marchand and Lundell together this year, 65 shot attempts, 3 expected goals per 60. Marchand and Lundell on the top power play unit. You know, those guys will get pretty heavy minutes. I think Samoskevich, I don't think he'll be around 15 minutes, give or take. But, you know, Marchand and Lundell, probably 19 to 21 minutes. Like they just have to play minutes just because Florida doesn't play their fourth line. They just basically play 3 lines. That's why they're trying to give themselves enough talent spread around those top 3 lines. I think those guys are still going to play heavy minutes. I'm not super concerned about any of the matchups on the New Jersey side. So like high ice time, low ownership at home. I think it's Florida 1 is the only thing I'm interested in, but I'm going to be honest, like what's kind of tickling my fancy a little bit is the New Jersey top line. Florida's just not the same defensive team that they were last year or the year before. And obviously injuries play a huge factor in that. I don't really care what the issues are. At home this year, the top pair, Forsling and Ekblad, 2.3 expected goals against, 2.4 actual goals against. Those are basically league average. That's nothing special. They really miss Alexander Barkov. Anton Lundell hasn't stepped up, at least offensively, like they hoped he would. So, you know, that New Jersey top line, Gritsuk and Hischier playing together over 65 minutes, 77 shot attempts, 3.6 expected goals per 60. You get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. Hischier and Brad are going to have to play heavy minutes because, like Florida, they're just missing too many bodies. Gritsuk, 24 shots in his last 10 games. So, you know, he's contributing. This is a mid-price line that's going to play heavy minutes. That's in a good 5-on-5 matchup. And Florida, on top of all that, Florida's the most penalized team in the league at 3.9 times shorthanded per game. So the Devils might get their fair share of power plays. Like, you know, if this was mid or late November last year, I would probably say, you know, this is kind of an easy pass for me. But that's not the case. So far this year, Florida Panthers, 3.03 goals against per 60 minutes. That's 18th in the NHL, just ahead of the New York Islanders. I honestly think New Jersey 1 is my favorite thing in this game, but I certainly don't mind the Florida top line.
Washington Capitals with a 2.9 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 3.2 total. Montreal going Suzuki, Caulfield, Bolduc, Slavkovsky, Demidov, Kapanen. Washington won last night 7-4. They'll probably run back Ovechkin, Strome, Beauvillier, Wilson, Protas, Sordif, McMichael, Leonard, Duhaime. I really didn't understand what Marty St. Louis was doing the other night because they practiced with Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, and then warm-ups they had Bolduc up there. I cannot stand playing lines that just don't practice together and have no history. Now they've played at least one game together, so like maybe they're familiar with each other. The other thing is Montreal top line fully correlated, but the goalie downgrade is fairly significant. They looked awful the last game. Like the Slavkovsky, Demidov, Kapanen line looked much better than them. I think that's a product of Marty St. Louis to kind of just be like, here, go play with them. And it's like, we're not playing pond hockey, you know what I mean? So like, this is like a professional game. I think they'll be better here tonight. At 10% projected, I'm a little bit concerned. They also moved Demidov off the top power play unit, but that puts Bolduc on. So like, I get it. From a fully correlated, you're facing a worse goalie, team back-to-back on the road. 10% might be a little much. I don't mind going to Slavkovsky, Demidov, Kapanen as a filler. You get Slavkovsky on the top power play unit. They're fine. I'm not running out to play them. Montreal 1 is my favorite line on the Montreal side. I'm just a little bit worried about their ownership and how they look together. Because if they look bad again, I could see Slavkovsky just moving right back up there. And, you know, at worst, they're fully correlated. On the Washington side, probably like I just don't like stacking Washington. Whether that's a bad bias or whatever, I like by default, it would be Ovechkin, Strome, Beauvillier just because they're 14K and they have a decent history together. Like, I just don't want to stack Sordif with Wilson and Protas. I think a two-man of Wilson and Protas is fine. A full stack, it would be Ovechkin, Strome, Beauvillier. I'm not super high in them, but they are 14K, so they're definitely viable. I think a two-man of McMichael and Leonard are perfectly viable as well. I think that's a little bit chasing points, but Leonard is a legit prospect. He's not some like guy just playing above his head. So it would be both top lines. I'll be honest, like I don't love either side. I prefer Montreal, but the ownership on that top line is a bit concerning.
Yeah. I'm going to start on the Montreal side. Like Slavkovsky's played on the top line a lot over the last basically like 2 calendar years. When they don't have him on the top line, 51 shot attempts, 2.5 expected goals per 60. Like, they'll still be above average. They'll still be good offensively. They won't be one of the best offensive teams in the league. Now, maybe they find some instant chemistry with Bolduc. I like Zach Bolduc. I think he's played fine this year. Whether he can play, top line with Suzuki Caulfield kind of remains to be seen. At 16,000 and change, considering we say it all the time, like with Doc out, with all those injuries, Suzuki's going to play over 20 minutes. Caulfield's probably going to be close to 20 minutes. I don't think Bolduc will be that high, but he'll still play 16, 17, and he's cheap enough as it is already. But the big note is the Montreal power play, much better with Bolduc. 10 expected goals per 60 with Bolduc on the top power play unit. Without him, that goes down to 6.3. That's important here because the Washington penalty kill is just not very good. Like Montreal, Washington takes their fair share of penalties. Washington's at 3.5 times shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. It's the 4th most in the league. As you said, they're going to have Charlie Lindgren, the backup, who's been clearly much worse than Logan Thompson this year. He's going to be starting in net. So this is a pretty good power play matchup for Montreal. I mean, at 16,600, perfectly correlated at home, facing a road back-to-back team with their backup goalie, I think 10% ownership is fine. I don't have a lot of interest in the second line. If you want to one-off some of the guys, like even though Demidov wasn't on the top power play unit last game, I think he still played over 18 minutes Like he's just going to play with a bunch of different line combinations because, they're running out of bodies. So one-off Demidov, I think, is fine. But if I'm stacking anything for Montreal, it's a top line. Washington 1 is interesting to me here because Ovechkin and Strome this year, 66 shot attempts, 3.8 expected goals over their last or over 110 minutes with Beauvillier on their line. Obviously, Strome and Ovechkin on the top power play unit. The Montreal top pair, they're the Dobson-Matheson pair, their shutdown pair. Their numbers have really fallen off of late. I was looking over their last 10 games, 42% shot attempt share, 3.2 expected goals against per 60. It's starting to look like the 2024 Montreal Canadiens all over again. I know it's a road back-to-back and all that. I think this is a pretty good matchup for Washington 1. So I like Washington 1 here. If you want to take off Beauvillier and put in Wilson, I think that's perfectly fine. Like, Wilson's at 4,500 on DK here tonight, and he's averaging 12 DK points per game. That feels fairly underpriced to me. So I think you can just turn a power play stack, take off Beauvillier, add in Wilson. That line, it would still be under 16K. This is a really good matchup for the Caps. I really like Washington top line. If you want to go one in the depth lines, no issue. But for me, it's Washington 1, then Montreal 1.
St. Louis Blues, 2.6 total. Heading into Philadelphia, the Flyers have a 2.8. We have landed on this game sucks because this game sucks. Jake Neighbors is back, and he's skating on the top line with Thomas and Snuggerud, according to Jim Montgomery, who just spoke not too long ago. The second line, I mean, he didn't confirm it, but he basically was hinting at it strongly. Second line is Dvorsky, Kyrou, Holloway, then Suter, Buchnevich, Shen. Flyers going Zegras, Tippett, Dvorak, Konechny, Forrester, Cates, Couturier, Michkov, Brink, the ghost of John Tortorello still lingering at the Flyers practice complex. Jake Neighbors coming back and onto that top line is interesting because they're 12,900 or something like that, 12,800. The problem is this is just a pretty poopers matchup. Well, first of all, the Blues suck. And the Flyers play at a extremely slow pace. But 12,900 for a top line that's probably going to be fully correlated. Robert Thomas plays heavy minutes. I think you can take a stab here. Forrester, Cates, and Brink aren't together. Cates and Forrester together, but Travis Konechny's had, listen, from a point production standpoint, he's had a good season. But if you look under the hood at his metrics on both ends of the ice, it's not great. So, it's not the worst possible matchup. I'm not running out to play the Blues by any stretch, but a top line fully correlated at 12-8 does give me some interest. Second line, listen, Dvorsky is fine. He does at 5-on-5 though, he isn't. And the Blues power play, probably not great. So, it probably would just be that top line for me because, Buchnevich hasn't had a 5-on-5 point in a long time. He's had a pretty rough season, so it would be top line or bust for me on the Blues side. On the Flyers side, listen, the Blues goaltending is still atrocious. For me, it's Zegras, Tippett, Dvorak at 13K, 3% projected ownership. Zegras looks rejuvenated away from Greg Cronin. This line has stuck together. They've looked fine. They've looked good offensively. That's really about the only line. I don't like the makeup of Couturier, Michkov, Brink, or Konechny, Forrester, Cates. I guess Konechny, Forrester, Cates is fine, but I'd much prefer to go to Zegras, Tippett, Dvorak. And then I don't mind taking a stab on the Thomas line. It's just not something I'm super thrilled about doing in single entry.
I feel pretty confident saying I'm not going to be playing any St. Louis Blues here tonight. Bottom 10 offensive team on the road against a top 10 defensive team. Like that's usually just a no for me, dog. So out on St. Louis. The Flyers side is certainly interesting just because of how poorly, Joel Hofer, but the entire Blues the Blues goaltending tandem has been. But Joel Hofer has also been bad. Like that Dvorak, Tippett, Zegras line, 60 shot attempts, 3.2 expected goals per 60. Zegras is averaging 2.8 shots per game over his last 10 games. That's typically been one of the knocks on him for DFS. It's just not shooting enough. That hasn't been the case lately. They're only 13K, so they're basically a filler. They'll get good ice time. Like Zegras will be over 18 minutes or has been averaging over 18 minutes of late, at least. The other two will be like 15 to 17, give or take. That's enough for me at 13K in a solid matchup. They don't have any power play correlation, which kind of sucks. But I think Zegras, Tippett, and Dvorak is easily my favorite line in this game. I will say Couturier, Michkov, and Brink is interesting to me for this. Couturier, Michkov, their offensive numbers are pretty good without Konechny. You were mentioning Konechny's poor play driving metrics. That's certainly been the case. 60 shot attempts, 2.8 expected goals per 60 for Couturier and Michkov without Travis Konechny on the line. You get Michkov and Couturier on the same power play unit. They'll also be like between 15 and 18 minutes. So not really any difference in ice time. I think they're playable because if you need to save $1,000, they're fine to dip down. But for me, Zegras, Tippett, and Dvorak is one of my more enticing fillers on the night, and it's basically the only thing I have interest in this game.
Columbus, our Blue Jackets with a 3.3 total heading into Toronto. The Leafs have a 3.2 total. Toronto going Nylander, Tavares, Calle Jarnkrok, Robertson, McMahon, Domi, Cowan, Lawton, Lorentz. Columbus going Marchenko, Fantilli, Voronkov, Monahan, Johnson, Wood, Coyle, Sillinger, Olivier. This is quite the game here because not only is Calle Jarnkrok min price, he is on the top power play unit now. So that line is fully correlated in a very good power play spot. The issue is the Toronto power play is powerless. They haven't scored since Matthews went out. That even when Matthews was in, they weren't as good as last year because Marner was super important to that power play. One of the greatest forwards ever to play the game, by the way. But this line is 18,200 with a 12.2% top two, 11.3% projected ownership. I would have preferred Easton Cowan on that top line because, like, Calle Jarnkrok, when he was on the Preds like 4 years ago, he was a very serviceable middle six player. At this stage in his career, he's just a guy with lots of consonants in his last name. So, like, from a standpoint of they're fully correlated and he's min price, yeah, like, it's fine. But, like, 18,200 for $1,700 less, I could play a fully correlated Columbus 1 against the Leafs, who are arguably the worst defensive team in the NHL with goalie issues and a bad penalty kill. So, I'm fine with the Leafs in 20 max in single entry. I'm probably out on them. If Easton Cowan was on that top line, maybe it'd be a different conversation. He's arguably been one of their better forwards on the season, and they just sent him down for a week for no reason. Like a Nylander one-off is fine, but from a full stacking percentage point of view, I'm probably out on the Leafs. I'm much more interested in the Columbus side. That top line fully correlated, 16,500. They do have 13.3% projected ownership, but listen, like, that price, even if they only play 17, 18 minutes, they can do the job. It's a good power play matchup. There's no matchup concerns. So I do really like Columbus 1. I think Columbus 3 is also in play, especially if you're playing like if you're trying to power play stack the Avs or the Wings or something, because like Sillinger and Coyle and Olivier, they played very decent minutes considering they're only 9,300, and the Leafs bottom 6 is garbage. So the one issue is like it's an excellent power play matchup, and I want those Marchenkos, Fantillis, and Vronkovs of the world. But if you can't fit them because you want to pick on my Rangers, you can definitely pluck a 2-man of Coyle, Sillinger, Coyle, Olivier, something like that from the third line. So it would be Columbus 1. Toronto 1, I guess, is fine in 20 max just because they're fully correlated, and I like Columbus 3 as a filler.
So your point about Kelly Yarncroc is a pretty good one. Back in Nashville, like 5 years ago or whatever, he was basically like a solid third liner. If you look at HockeyViz's player measurement, website HockeyViz does something called synthetic goals. It just takes everything: offensive, defensive, play driving, penalty taking or drawing, shooting talent, passing talent, like all that. Yarncroc was AHL quality last year, and he's been even worse this year. Anything can happen in a single game, but if you want me to play double-digit Kelly Yarncroc on a 12-game slate in the year 2025, it's just an easy pass for me. I think the second line is a little bit more interesting. Domi, McMahon, Robertson. It's not like there are any real tough matchups on the Columbus side. Nick Robertson is a good goal scorer for the limited minutes that he does play. You don't get any of the guys on the top power play unit, but they're all on the second power play unit, and they've been splitting the minutes a little bit more. I mean, because what's the point of playing the top power play if they're not scoring, right? You may as well try to get something out of the second unit. So they've actually been getting some secondary power play time. 10,600, I think they're playable. They're coming in over-owned. I doubt I'll get to them. Honestly, I think if one-off Easton Cowan is my favorite thing in this game. But, I don't have a ton of interest in the Leafs. My interest is on the Columbus side. It's funny you mentioned the ice time. If you look at Columbus's game in Winnipeg the other night, first, second, and third in ice time were Cole Sillinger, Matthew Olivier, and Charlie Coyle. They were the only Columbus forwards to play over 17 minutes in that game. Matthew Olivier had over a minute more in even strength ice time than Adam Fantilli did. Matthew Olivier played, they lost 5-2. So, it's kind of how that goes. But that's why I do think there's some merit to playing that Columbus. Quote third line, at least second line. Some nights are first line, I guess. I don't know what's going on. But those guys are all playing 16 to 18 minutes. They've been good offensively. 57 shot attempts, 3.3 expected goals per 60. Those are pretty good offensive numbers. So, at 9,300, there are expensive power play stacks. We already went over Detroit. We'll get to Edmonton and Tampa next. Colorado's on this slate. Dallas is one of the late night hammers. There are a lot of expensive spots you might want to get to. I think Columbus 3 is extremely playable here tonight against what is a very bad Leafs team. I know St. Louis lost that game 3-2. Basically, after the first 10 minutes, the puck was in Toronto's end the entire time. I do like Columbus 3 as a filler. Columbus 1 is extremely playable here tonight. 13.3% ownership sucks, but I'd rather play them at 13% than Montreal 1 at 10 or 11% or something like that. I'd certainly rather play them than New Jersey. I think Columbus 1 is very playable. Their offensive numbers are still good. 3.7 expected goals per 60, 62 shot attempts per 60. Voronkov, 16 minutes. Fantilli and Marchenko, typically 19 to 20 minutes, other than that game against Winnipeg. Columbus 1 is my favorite line in this game, but I think Columbus 3 is extremely playable as a filler for your expensive power play stacks, and I do like a one-off Easton Cowan here.
Yeah, Easton Cowan's my favorite thing on the Leafs side as well. Edmonton Oilers with a 2.9 total heading into Tampa. The Lightning have a 3.5. Tampa going Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli, Gensel, Point, Gonsalves. Guys in the bottoms. Bjorkstrand's down there on the top power play, but he's playing with Jack Finley.
I think the second line is Point, Gensel, Nick Paul.
Nick Paul, right. He's back. I forgot about that, yeah. Bjorkstrand playing with Jack Finley and Curtis Douglas sounds like a jobber tag team from the Attitude Era.
I was gonna say it sounds like an English movie from the 1960s where they just bring in some guest actor from Scandinavia or something. But
Edmonton, they played last night, went 11-7. I would imagine they go 11-7 here again tonight. We just don't know. On the Tampa side, I think going back to Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli makes a lot of sense here. 19,200. They're the most expensive line that isn't over 20K. They're 19,200, 13.5% top two, 11.6% projected ownership. Cliffy talked about it on the show yesterday that like their defense pairings really have been bad. Calvin Pickard in net probably tonight. Whether he's an upgrade or downgrade, you can talk amongst yourselves about that. Is still an Edmonton goaltender. I do really like Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli here. Point Gensel Paul is a little interesting. Like, I'm not a huge Nick Paul guy, but John Cooper loves Nick Paul. So, like, I have confidence in saying he will stick there. It is a little chasing that Gensel hat trick, and Point is overpriced, but I don't mind them. I much prefer Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli. You want to one-off like a Bjorkstrand or something for an extra power play, cool. Tampa won for sure for me. On the Edmonton side, there's no ownership there, and that's the one thing that I would say is the reason to play them. Like, I know they've looked awful, but anytime you can get McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman for like 1%, you do it. It's a 12-game slate, and in single entry, it's very hard to get there. And I probably will not have Oilers in my lineup tonight, but if I was making 20 lineups, I would make a point to have at least one Edmonton power play stack, just because like they can absolutely destroy a slate. And if you can get them at 1%, you're way leveraged over the field. So like, I don't love Edmonton here, but the reason to play them is because the ownership is so low and they can just absolutely destroy a slate because it's coming. We just don't know when it's going to be.
Yeah, I'll talk about the Oilers quickly here. I had a thread over on Blue Sky today talking about the Edmonton defense. We mentioned it on the show before about how their defense aren't jumping into the play nearly as much as they had previously. I went and dug way more into it. Compared to last year, the Edmonton defensemen are responsible for 16% fewer zone entries at 5-on-5, so they're not jumping into the rush. 11% less offense created off the rush, 26% less offense created off the cycle for Edmonton defensemen. Every single one of their regular blue liners has seen a decline in expected goals for play driving compared to last year. And all except Jake Wallman, a goals for play driving decline. And the only reason he has it is because he missed some time and he, his first few games back or whatever, they just went bananas when he was on the ice. Like, it's just a small sample thing. This is a team that's trying to insulate their goaltending by not having their defensemen jump in the rush. And it's actually backfiring completely because their defense is worse. They're when you leave it more up to the forwards, when you don't give them defensemen as outlets, you are kind of limiting what you can do offensively, and it's easier for the opposition to just focus on the forwards, turn the puck over, and get the puck moving back down the ice. That's just a diatribe to say, like, the Oilers weren't a good 5-on-5 team last year offensively. They're worse this year, and I don't think it's going to get a whole lot better unless they kind of change up their offensive philosophy a bit. And I think there's some reason to believe that it's making them worse defensively on top of that, because it's constantly putting pressure on their forwards to not turn the puck over. They're going to turn the puck over eventually, and when you do, and when that happens, their defensemen are just facing one rush after another coming back at them, not absolving them of their play. I just think it is clear that they change how they approach their offense. And now they are really reliant on power play production, which they can do, but they're drawing the fourth fewest power play opportunities per game. Like, if they only get a couple power plays, it's really not enough to pay off the top guys. Like, I don't know, man. I know that there's low ownership on Edmonton here tonight. For that reason, like, I'm fine if you want to do like a McDavid Roslovic 2-man, or, you know, one-off McDavid or one-off Draisaitl or something like that. As far as like full 5-man stacking or 4-man stacking or something like that, I think it's a pass for me. If this was a 7-game slate or something, or a 6-game slate, then I'd be giving a lot more consideration. But where we have, you know, Colorado later, we have Dallas later. We already went over Detroit. Like, there are just other expensive spots you can go to for a team that's not sucking ass right now. So for me, like, I'm out on Edmonton. On the Tampa side, like we mentioned yesterday on the show, I just went over it again. This isn't helping their team defense. It's worse than last year. In fact, quite a bit worse than last year. Washington just carved them up in the offensive zone. You know, Nick Paul coming back, going in on the second line is kind of interesting. But I was looking at Nikita Kucherov's offensive numbers this year when he has any center except for Braden Point. 74 shot attempts, 3.9 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5. They are shredding the opposition. Like, Braden Point's not having a good year, whether he's injured, whether there's something else going on. Like, we just don't know. His shots are down. His typical tracking stats are down. Anthony Cirelli, it seems like, has found some chemistry with Kucherov. I'm with you. I really like that top line, 19,200. It's a great 5-on-5 matchup. The Edmonton penalty kill is not good. I really do like Tampa 1. I think I'd way rather play them than Edmonton here tonight.
Yep. Before we move on to the next one, we have a $5 super chat from Hypno Toad. Clifford and Josh, my mans, thanks for the breakdowns. Thank you for hanging out with us, and thank you for always wake up at 6 a.m. and, you know, he's already asking questions. I'm like, holy moly, man, I need at least 400 milligrams of caffeine before I get to that. But, you know, I appreciate the super chat and all the support in the Discord.
Yeah, certainly do appreciate the support. Hopefully we're helping a little bit. That's what we're here to do. Hopefully you can have a big night tonight. Either way, certainly appreciate the support. Talk to you in the Discord a little bit later.
Seattle with a 2.8 total heading into Chicago. The Blackhawks have a 2.8 total. Chicago going Green, Bedard, Burakovsky. Bertuzzi is back on the second line with Nazar and Moore. Teravainen down on the third line with Donato and Mikheyev. Seattle has guys wearing Kraken jerseys. No, they have – they're going Beniers. I should mention them because the top line's getting 6% ownership. Beniers, Eberle, Marchment, Schwartz, Stevenson, Winterton, Catton, Wright, and Tolvanen. I don't really want to play Seattle here. I never really want to play Seattle here. By default, it would be the Beniers, Eberle, Marchment line at 13-1, 2.9% top two, 6% projected ownership. Like, the issue I'm running into is, like, they're their best line and they're not creating anything. So, like, why do I want to play them? Like, Chicago's penalty kill isn't great, but Seattle's power play sucks. I think it's Spencer Knight in net. So, like, if you get to Seattle in 20 max, fine. But, like, I'm not playing Seattle in single entry here tonight. Certainly not playing a Chandler Stevenson line. If he beats me, he beats me. It's one of the lines in the sand that I have in this sport. On the Chicago side, I think it's the top line. Now, you know, Ryan Green hasn't been awful there. Their offensive numbers in 85 minutes or whatever have been very good. But I think I would turn it into a power play stack, go Bedard, Burakovsky, leave off Green, add in either Teravainen or Bertuzzi. It's, you know, if you add in Bertuzzi, it's only 2,100 more. You add in Teravainen, it's 1,200 more. So at absolute worst, you still have a top line fully correlated for under 18K. I guess you could go like Bedard, Burakovsky, Lev Shunov if you don't want to add in that third guy. But for me, Chicago won, Chicago power play. Seattle won by default, but I'm not playing them.
Yeah, I agree with you. If anything, it's the Beniers line. Very small sample. They've been better with Mason Marchment. I think that's kind of to be expected. Marchment's a good forward. But if you're asking me to play a Seattle line whose ownership is over 2x their top two stack, and they're on the road on a 12-game slate, like it's almost always a pass for me. So out on Seattle. That Chicago top line, 15,800, is pretty interesting to me just because, as you mentioned, like they have been good. I mean, they've been good with a bunch of different wingers. Certainly, they've been good with Ryan Green on the top line. So far this season, 67 shot attempts per 60, 3.2 expected goals per 60, 4.8 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5. You know, they'll see some of the top line matchup against Beniers. I'm going to assume they'll see a fair bit against Stevenson and Wright as well. Like, it's pretty good 5-on-5 matchup. Seattle goaltending's fallen apart on the penalty kill. Maybe Joey Decord coming back and being healthy. They haven't confirmed a goal yet, but I assume it'll be Decord. Maybe him coming back being healthy will change things. But at 15,800, you know, especially where Bedard's playing like 21 minutes, even like Burakovsky's like 18 to 19 minutes. Maybe it's a little bit less now that they're starting to get healthy. But if they run 11-7 again, it's the top guys that get more minutes, not the fourth liners. So I really like Chicago one here. At 1% ownership, I imagine it'll be a little bit higher, but for a mid-price stack at 15,800, I think this is one of the low-owned mid-price stacks that I would go to tonight. Like, if you want to avoid the high ownership, like from a Montreal, we'll get to Los Angeles in a second, from Los Angeles, from Toronto, you know, those types of things for the mid-price stacks. I think this is the one of them that you go to. So I do like Chicago one here. If you want to turn a power play stack, fine. But, you know, Seattle doesn't take a ton of penalties. As long as the goaltending doesn't fall apart, the penalty kill's generally fine. I'm perfectly fine just straight up stacking Chicago one and then going about my day.
New York Rangers with a 2.7 total heading into Colorado. The Avs have a 3.7. Colorado going McKinnon, Netchus, Lehkonen, Nelson, Colton, Brindley, Olofsson, Landeskog, Drury. Rangers have new lines and new power play. They're going Mika, Lafreniere, and Cooley, Trocheck, Panera, and JT Miller. They took Cooley off the top power play and put Trocheck back on. Good, great, grand, wonderful. That
It's like 2 goals in 3 games or something like that with Cooley on the top power play. Like, got to change it.
Luckily, this is not the matchup for the Rangers anyway. So, like, I'm at peace with the decisions here. I don't particularly love the Rangers here. You know, Mika, Cooley, Lafreniere is cheap enough where you can get to them in 20 max. Again, like, Colorado might be the best defensive team in the league. So I'm pretty much out on the Rangers here. If they happen to get a little bit into your mix in 20 to 150 max, fine. But I'm pretty much out on them. Colorado one is interesting. They're 22,300 with a 15.7% top two stack, 3.4% projected ownership. They're matchup proof. This is a pretty tough matchup for them. They're going to see they're at home and they play so much that they'll see a lot of pairs of the Rangers. But, you know, I would imagine they see a fair bit of Gavrikov and Fox. But, like, I have no faith in these new lines being anything decent defensively. The one thing that gives me pause is Igor Shesterkin. But, like, listen, this line coming in at 3.4% is horrifying. They're a line I will always consider spending up for in single entry. I think they're in play. If they were like 11, 12% here, I'd have a little bit of pause going up against Igor, but like 3%, I think they make a very interesting play. I think I prefer the Wings here tonight, save the 1,300, and they're not facing one of the best goalies in the league, but at 3% projected, they're definitely in play for me. So Colorado won. I don't particularly love the Rangers here tonight. if they get into your mix, you can leave them.
Yeah, I mean, the Rangers are 30th in scoring. Colorado is first by goals against. That feels like a pretty easy fade to me on a slate this big. Also, is JT Miller even interested in playing hockey anymore?
Oh man, so when he's one of those guys, like when a team's playing good, he'll elevate the team. But when you're going bad, man, he is just a cancer, man.
That's my captain.
Yep.
So I'm out on the Rangers. Colorado 1 is interesting because they're perfectly correlated, 22,300. Now, if this line has like 2 really good weeks, this line is 25,000.
Yeah.
I do think they're slightly underpriced. One of the issues is like they're not getting monster ice time just because Colorado actually has 3 good lines now. They don't need to play McKinnon 24 minutes a game or whatever. He'll be probably like 21, which is still a fair amount of ice time, but it's not the monster minutes he typically plays. I was looking over their last 10 games, 65 shot attempts, 3.1 expected goals, like over, I think, nearly 5 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5. We always talk about it. The power play has been better since they added Victor Olofsson to it. The Rangers penalty kill, how do I put this?
Goes as Igor goes.
Has not been good. I was looking over the last 5 weeks. Second most shot attempts against per 60, second most expected goals against per 60, second most shots against per 60, third most goals against per 60. The penalty kill's falling apart. Only Toronto's has been comparably bad, which is what the hell is going on? I think this is a fine spot for Colorado 1, and it's kind of why I don't like Edmonton here tonight, is because Colorado's not getting any ownership either, and it's like, Edmonton at 1% or Colorado at 3%, considering how those two teams have played this season. It's pretty easily Colorado at 3% for me. I do like Colorado 1 here tonight. I think I would rather play Detroit just because they are a little bit cheaper in what I think is a better matchup. But if you want to play something expensive and you don't want to play Detroit, which, listen, I understand, Colorado is certainly the top line. They're my favorite line here in this game. If you want to dip down to one of the depth Colorado lines, like Nelson, Colton, Brindley, 10,200, getting 14 to 15 minutes. Even Brock Nelson's been playing like 17, 18 minutes at times. Like, they're getting decent minutes. They've been good together. 3.9 expected goals, 68 shot attempts for Nelson and Colton on the ice together per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. So they're fine as a filler, but for me, this is a Colorado 1 game for sure. And they're one of my top 3 lines on the board. They're just expensive.
Yep. Vegas Golden Knights with a 3 total. Heading into Utah, the Mammoth have a 3 total. New lines for them, new power play units as well. They are going Hayton, Keller, Schmaltz. Hayton also replaces Logan Cooley on the top power play unit. Second line is now Cooley, Genther, Carcone. Paterka down on the third line with McBain and Krause. Vegas going Eichel, Barbashev, Bowman, Marner, Dorofeyev, Hurdle. No ownership here on either side. Now, with Hayton there instead of Cooley, that line goes from 18-8 to 16-3. And now they're fully correlated. The problem is, like, Vegas just doesn't take penalties. And in that price range, you have Montreal, you have Columbus, you have other lines that I'm already forgetting that we talked about. You know what I mean? So, like, historically, Hayton, Schmaltz, and Keller, when Hayton is healthy, has been very, very good. So, like, from that standpoint, I think they're in 20 max mix now just because their price is more viable with Hayton there. In single entry, I'd rather go play Columbus for sure. Vegas 2 is getting, or Utah 2 is getting a little bit better. They just need to put Paterka back there instead of Shotbot Carcone, and then we can talk about it. Also, like, the minutes there aren't great, but with Cooley there, I would imagine Cooley or Genther's minutes may tick up a little bit, but this isn't the matchup for it. So it would be Utah 1 for me. It's more of a 20 max play. On the Vegas side, it would be Marner, Dorofeyev, Hurdle. for me. They're fully correlated. They have been excellent in 130 minutes. 3.3 expected goals for, controlling the play, very good defensively as well. So, it's not the best matchup for them either. So at 18-1, it's more of an MME play. So Vegas 2, Utah 1, both probably 20 max plays.
Yeah, just overall, I don't have a ton of interest in this game. Like, these are actually two fairly slow-paced teams. On the season, Utah's given up the fewest shots against per minute. Vegas is giving up the fourth fewest shots against per minute. Like, I don't think we see a ton of volume in shots for and against on either side here. And, both typically have pretty good penalty kills. Like, this isn't a good power play spot for either side. The Utah top line defensively this year, 44 shot attempts. 51 shot attempts against per 60, 1.6 expected goals against per 60 with Barrett Hayton there. Like, that's really good defense. So I honestly, the fact that the top line is perfectly correlated is the only thing that's giving me pause. Like, if Hayton was still on power play 2 or whatever, I would probably just pass on this game entirely. At 16,000 and change, they're playable. The thing is like, Chicago's right there. I would rather play Chicago even without the perfect correlation because it's such a better matchup against Seattle than it is against Vegas. So I'm kind of out on this game entirely. Like, Utah 1, I think is playable in a 20 max or something like that. Just because it is such low ownership with perfect correlation, like, that is still valuable regardless of the matchup. But in a matchup this bad where there are like I said, you can just go play Chicago for a comparably low-owned line that's that's at home in a much better spot. If you don't care about ownership, you can go play Columbus. There's a line later in one of the later games, actually the next game we'll get to, that I would rather play that's in that price range. I would probably rather play New Jersey, the top line from New Jersey, than I would Utah 1 here. So I just think there are just other spots that I would rather go to. So this game's pretty much just an entire pass for me, at least as far as the forwards are concerned.
Yeah, I like Hayton being there. It's just not the matchup for it. Super Bowl 20 for Frostback. Ottawa Senators, the 3.2 total heading into Anaheim. The Ducks have a 2.9 total. Ducks, I fell asleep. They won, right? Yeah, they won.
Yeah,
but
they scored. I think they were down 3-1, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember.
Yeah, they were down 3-1 to. No, they were up 3-1. Sorry, and then scored a late goal. I was thinking of another team. Sorry, but yeah, they were up 3-1, choked, and then scored late anyway.
Yep. They're gonna probably run back Carlson, Terry Kreider, Gauthier, McTavish, Seneca. Ottawa going Stützle, Batherson, Perron, Cousins, Grieg, Zetterlund, Pinto, Giroux, Amadio. So I know this is a big slate, and they haven't been great over the past week. But like, some regression was expected. Like, if Leo Carlson kept up this pace, he would have had like a 140-point season, and that's just ridiculous. But this is an excellent power play matchup. They're 16,600 coming in under 1%. I don't think I'm going to get there in single entry because they're, like we just talked about, Chicago. There's Columbus. There's the Devils. There's a ton of teams in that range, but like, they are fully correlated in an excellent power play matchup coming in under 1%. So I do like Anaheim 1 here. Probably more of a 5, 10, 20 max type deal. You want to go to Gauthier, McTavish, Seneca, like, I'd rather just focus on the power play guys. So if you want to add in Gauthier, go for it. On the Ottawa side, like, listen, like, the Ducks aren't a very good defensive team. They played yesterday. It was Dostal in net, so it's going to be their backup, the name is Peter Mrazek. There we go. I just don't love these lines. I think it would be some sort of power play stack. I go like Stützle, Batherson, Giroux, or something like that. If you wanted to play on 5-on-5 line, I would go to Pinto, Giroux, Amadio as a filler. So, but really, I want to get power play guys in if I'm playing the Sens. So I probably just do a power play stack Pinto line is fine as a filler. Anaheim 1 is fine. It's a very good power play matchup. There's just so many lines in that range I prefer.
I feel personally offended saying there are many lines that you prefer in that price range over Anaheim 1. That's something I'm going to remember for a while.
Listen, the list is long, Cliffy.
This is our Anaheim Ducks here, and you're saying that there are other lines you prefer? First of all, how dare you, sir? I never thought I would hear those words coming out of your mouth. Like, yes, of course I like Anaheim 1 here. Yes, they have slowed down. Their last 10 games, they're still at 70 shot attempts, 3.4 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Like you said, there was some regression expected. And, just kind of look at Anaheim's recent schedule. Like in Colorado, in Detroit, especially where that top line would have to face off against the Detroit top pair, in Minnesota, whose defense has been getting better since they were able to reunite that second line, and against Utah, who's been one of the better defensive teams in the league this year. I don't think it's any surprise that once they get past that group of 4 really good defensive teams, they put up a 4 spot on the Bruins. Now Ottawa's been pretty good defensively at 5-on-5. So one thing that's kind of holding me back, but that Ottawa top line's just been so good offensively that they're an easy play for me. If you don't want to play double-digit owned Columbus or Montreal or whatever, this is one of the lines along with Chicago and New Jersey, the low-owned lines 1, 2, 3% that have been very good offensively this season and are just not getting any ownership. Now, Ottawa's been really good defensively at 5-on-5. What you're really banking on is the Ottawa goaltending not holding their end of the bargain. I don't know how to tell anyone this, but they haven't held their end of the bargain for the first 6 weeks of the season. I really do like Anaheim 1 here. They're absolutely one of the mid-price lines I would play. Mason McTavish played over 17 minutes last night. Maybe he finally crawled out of the doghouse. So, Anaheim 2 is certainly in play. But what they've been doing is using the Strome-Killorn line in some shutdown matchups. And I think that'll have them out against the Zub-Sanderson pairing quite a bit. And then that means that Anaheim 1 is going into the depth pairs with no Thomas Chabot. I love Jordan Spence. He can't carry 2 defense pairs by himself. I really do like Anaheim 1 here. On the Ottawa side, you do have to consider the Ottawa top line because there's 2 things going on with Anaheim right now. One, Drew Hellison is just completely sinking the top pair. He's just not an NHLer, and they have him playing on the top pair. I don't know why. In fact, they were getting ran over so regularly that they started using Jacob Trouba and Olin Zellweger in a shutdown role. You can kind of guess how that's going. Hint, not well. So I don't mind Stützle, Batherson, and Perron here, actually. 57 shot attempts per 60. They're carrying the shot attempt share. They're not getting a ton of ice time, and Stützle's been shooting less. I still think that they're playable considering they're under 16K. If you want to take out Perron and put in Giroux, all of a sudden that line is perfectly correlated at $16,000. And as you mentioned, Dostal is not in net. It's Peter Mrazek. And it's a pretty good matchup for them. I kind of like a Stützle, Batherson, Giroux line, power play stack-ish, from the Ottawa side. I certainly do like Anaheim on their side. I think there are things to like on both sides of this game, considering nobody's going to be 5% owned.
Yep. Los Angeles Kings with a 3.1 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 2.5. Your boy Klingberg is back in the lineup. He's also back on the top power play unit for reasons beyond our belief. Kings are loading a top line here of Kempe, Fiala, Byfield, then Laferriere, Fogle, Deneau, Kopitar with Moore and Kuzmenko. Sharks going Celebrini, Smith, Kurashev, Eklund, Wenberg, and Toffoli. Toffoli still on power play 2. We had differing opinions on this game before the show. I like Kempe, Fiala, Byfield. at 17,600, 11.5% top two stack, 11.3% projected ownership. And I think that's where I lost you at the ownership. I don't think you really want to play chalk kings. I don't blame you. I still kind of want to do it. I really like that line. They're fully correlated. The Sharks penalty kill is bad. Askarov has been good. But, you know, coming in at your top two stack for a fully correlated line is fine. Like, I get it. It's a 12-game slate on the road, but I'm in on that line. I also don't mind Deneau, Fogle, Laferriere as a filler at 10-5 with 3% projected ownership. Like Alex Laferriere, elite doer of things. You know, Fogle hasn't been great this season. Neither has Deneau, but like it's the Sharks, and it's going to be the middle six of the Sharks. So for 10,500, if you're doing something with the Avs or the Wings or Tampa or Edmonton, I think you can pluck two of those guys and move about your day. But I do really like the Kings top line here. I wanted to do a San Jose power play stack because for once this season, they're not getting a ton of ownership, and the Kings penalty kill has been pretty bad. But with Klingberg there, like, yeah, it's getting a little bit better, but it's still nowhere near how good it is with Orlov. So I guess like a Celebrini one-off is fine here. Do a two-man with him and Will Smith. I don't mind Wenberg, Eklund, Toffoli as a filler, but like, do I really want to play the depth of the Sharks on the 12-game slate? No. So it would be like Celebrini and Smith and Kings one.
I'm out on the Sharks.
There you go.
I mean, listen, Celebrini might get another hat trick again. He's a really, really good player. The Kings have been good defensively at 5-on-5. I mean, we do have to say that. San Jose power play, I don't know why they keep going back to Klingberg, but their power play is not good when he's running it. It would be a decent power play spot otherwise, but it's not anymore. Overowned. It's a pass on me from San Jose. On the Kings side, like, it's not that I don't like the top line for Los Angeles. Like, Byfield, Fiala, Kempe have played 80 minutes together over the last couple seasons, 3 expected goals, 71 shot attempts per 60 at 5-on-5. They're going to get heavy minutes, 19 to 20 minutes probably. Perfectly correlated. I just don't like the double-digit ownership. Like, say what we will about the Sharks, they've not been that bad defensively this year. Goals against, they've been better than Montreal, Ottawa, Boston, like a bunch, certainly like Edmonton, bunch of teams on this slate. So if I want to play, a line at around 10% or so, I'll just go play Columbus 1. A team that has been much better offensively and a better matchup on the road. Honestly, that's where the Toronto Maple Leafs are now, that I think a road matchup against Toronto is a better matchup than a road matchup against San Jose. Hope Toronto enjoys the rebuild. So I don't mind Kings 1 here. It's just, I think if I'm going to play a double-digit own line, I'll just go play Columbus instead. So it's really my only interest in this game is that Kings top line. Like, they are playable. I think they'll be fine or good, but especially without Drew Doughty in a matchup where San Jose's not been that bad defensively. Like, that San Jose second line is at 1.7 expected goals against per 60, 50 shot attempts against per 60. Those are really good defensive numbers, and that's the shutdown matchup that the Kempe, Byfield, Fiala will be facing. So I don't mind Kings 1, but again, I just think if I play a double-digit online, I'm playing Columbus instead. So generally just not a ton of interest in this game.
Dallas Stars with a 3.4 total. Heading into Vancouver, the Canucks have a 3 total. Dallas going Rantanen, Johnston, Ben, Robertson, Hintz, Sagan. Vancouver, Pedersen, Kane, Sherwood, Garland, Besser, David Kampf. Couldn't make it on this Leafs team, thrust into the top 6 of the Canucks.
And if I'm not mistaken, because he made his debut the other night. Now, I didn't watch the game, but if I'm not mistaken, he was on for 5 goals against.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, 0 goals for, 5 against. He played 14 minutes of ice time. They were outshot 14-0 with him on the ice, and they got outscored 5-0.
Yeah.
There's your second line center, Vancouver.
Yeah, I'm out on the Canucks, even though like the second and third pairs for Dallas are like me and you right now. Like, I guess you could like, it's like Vander Kane's 5,500, Sherwood's 39. Like, I don't even want one-offs here, because like the one-offs I would want are like Besser or Garland, but they're just getting run over at 5-on-5. So like I'm out on Vancouver. Dallas, it's a power play stack. I think if you wanted to go to one of the lines, it'd be Hintz, Robertson, Sagan. But, you know, until Thatcher Demko comes back, I just power play stacking against. I probably go Hintz, Robertson, Rantanen. If you want to put in Johnson too, that's fine. Like you just want to full send the power play. That's perfectly fine as well. So from 5-on-5 line, I prefer the Hintz line. For me, if I'm playing Dallas, I'm just full sending the power play.
Still laughing at David Kamp's Canucks debut. They get it outshot 14-0 when he's on the ice. Yeah, I'm not playing any second or third lines or anything from Vancouver. If anything, it would be the top line. But I was looking at Pettersson and Kiefer Sherwood together this year. Nearly 50 minutes together, 41 shot attempts, 1.9 expected goals per 60. So bad 5-on-5 numbers. There's just so much in that mid-price range that you can play. Like we went over Chicago, we went over New Jersey, we went over Anaheim, we went over Columbus. There's a Philly top line. It's a little bit cheaper. There's Montreal, there's Washington. There's just so much else I would rather play. So I'm out on Vancouver. The interest is the Dallas side. That Hintz line, 58 shot attempts, 2.7 expected goals per 60. They are controlling the play when they're on the ice. Everybody's ice time has come down since they started getting healthy. That's the one thing that's a little bit concerning to me, but this is a great matchup for Dallas. The Canucks are at 3.2 times shorthanded per game. It's not one of the worst in the league, but it's in the bottom 10. And if you look over the last 5 weeks, the only team giving up more than one power play goal against per game is Vancouver. And Dallas has had one of the best power plays in the league this year. So I really do like Robertson, Hintz, Sagan. If you want to take out Sagan and put in Rantanen or put in Johnston or something like that, I think that's eminently doable. But this Dallas Stars team, when you look at everything, when you look at power play opportunities, the penalty kill they're facing, the 5-on-5 matchups, everything, this Dallas team might be in the best matchup of any team on the board here tonight. So I really like Robertson, Hintz, and Sagan. Even Robertson, with that depressed ice time of late, 46 shots in his last 10 games. I think it's Dallas 2 for me, but if you want to take out Sagan and put in one of Brandon or Johnston, that's perfectly fine. But one way or another, this is a Dallas game, and like I said, they're easily in one of the best spots on the board.
Yep. Let's talk about defensemen here. Top of the board, we have Cale Makar, Zach Werenski, Quinn Hughes, Evan Bouchard, Jake Sanderson, and Miro Heiskanen. Those are the guys 6K and up. I think my number one in that range is Zach Werenski. I think Makar is fine. It's a good power play matchup, but I'd rather save the 800 and play against the Leafs. So Werenski 1, Makar 2. I think Sanderson's fine. Heiskanen's fine. Don't particularly love Quinn Hughes or Evan Bouchard.
Yeah, I will say Werenski's also number one. He's number one on my board. He's number one by DraftKings fantasy point projections, and he's cheaper than Makar, so he makes a lot of sense. He will be high owned. I imagine he'll be 15 to 20% in most contests. I think his ownership projections around 18%, so just keep that in mind. But it's a really good matchup for him. So Werenski number one. I like Jake Sanderson here tonight. It's a really good matchup against Anaheim, and without Shabbat, I'm not going to say he's going to play monster minutes or anything like that. But his last 3 games, 23.5, 26, 29. So, he could see over 25 minutes here tonight. I do like Sanderson. My case for Quinn Hughes is that if Vancouver does anything offensively, and listen, Dallas has not been that great defensively, especially at 5-on-5 this year, Hughes is going to be involved. I think if you want to play Hughes, that's fine. But the real reason to play him would be low ownership. But he's at 9.5%. Sanderson's at 12.5%. I'd rather save the money and go play Sanderson instead. So Werenski, Sanderson, Quinn Hughes at the top. In the mid price range, I'll mention both Brandon Montour and Vince Dunn. Depends how much money you want to spend. Good matchup in Chicago. I would probably go with Brandon Montour. He's typically the better peripheral guy, so I do like that peripheral four, but they're both very much in play. Jacob Chychrun, back to the well with our Washington guys, Chychrun and Carlson, both in play, certainly. Matt Schaefer, like, it's not a great matchup for the Islanders, but if they do some damage here tonight, he's going to have to get involved, and he puts up a lot of shots. Jackson Lacombe, he's in play again. Brant Clark, certainly in the matchup against San Jose. I guess I'll mention Morgan Riley. Like, he projects well, but man, I just really don't like the way this Leafs team looks. For the cheap guys, like Darren Radish is in play again. Axel Sandin-Pellikka is in play again. Jordan Spence and Artem Zub, both from Ottawa. Like, again, with Shabbat out, those guys are going to have to play a bigger role. I guess Klingberg's in play, but my God, I just can't do it. Esa Lindell's under 3K for Dallas, and with all their defensive injuries, he's going to have to get good minutes. I think Tyler Myers, that game might just honestly be a track meet back and forth. I don't mind Tyler Myers for under 3K either. Oh, Ivan Provorov, obviously.
Let's talk about goalies here. Again, like, I don't particularly love the top range. I haven't all season. Got Bob, Forsberg, Wedgwood, Ottinger, Woll, Gibson, Vasilevsky. I don't mind Wedgwood. Rangers are one of the worst scoring teams in the league. I guess he would be fine. Jake Ottinger is fine, but like, I'm more in the mid-range and the cheaper guys. Our boy Danny V, 7,900. I think he's fine. He hasn't been as good as he was in the beginning of the season, but this is a pretty good matchup. Sam Montembeault, 7,800. I know he hasn't been great, but Washington's back-to-back on the road. Not my favorite. If it is Joey Decord, I would have some interest there. I like Chicago for that reason. I like Decord. Spencer Knight in that same game. I like both goalies in that game. If I'm spending down, Jet Greaves, 7,300 makes some sense. Askarov at 7,100 also. Like, yes, I like the Kings, but the Kings sometimes have issues scoring. So, and Askarov has been good. So at 7,100, I think he's in play.
Yeah, top of the board by projections is Andrei Vasilevsky. He's projected for the second most saves, but under 3 goals against. So Vasilevsky's at the top of the board. Makes a lot of sense. Scott Wedgwood, I do think there's some decent shutout equity for Wedgwood. He's fourth by shutout percentage per Stokastic here tonight. So I certainly don't mind Scott Wedgwood. I guess technically Anton Forsberg's in play. I don't think he's a particularly good goalie. So for me at the top, it would be Vasilevsky, Wedgwood. I guess Bobrovsky's playable, but he's not been that good this year. And Florida just takes way too many penalties, could give up some high percentage shots. So I don't like that. So I think it's really Vasilevsky and Wedgwood. I'll mention Joseph Woll just because if Toronto wins that game, I don't think it's going to be like a 7-5 game or something like that. I think they win that game. Maybe it's like 4-2 and he saves 28 of 30. Like, Toronto gives up shot volume. Columbus creates a lot. Could lead to like 5 goals against on 19 shots in the first 2 periods, and then he's pulled or something. But I don't mind Woll for the expensive guys, but it's really Vasilevsky and Wedgwood. The cheap guys, Spencer Knight, Askarov, Jet Greaves. I think those 3 guys, especially Spencer Knight is 7,600, makes a ton of sense. Askarov, I don't think it's a fine matchup against Los Angeles. I'm not super concerned there. So Knight, Askarov, Greaves.
We should be back tomorrow unless the GPPs are really terrible. Otherwise, we will for sure be back on Saturday. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Going to our Columbus Blue Jackets, and I'm going to say Dmitry Voronkov.
There you go. So I'm going to pull a Cliffy here, say I didn't like this team, and then cover my bases. I'm going Chris Kreider.
Okay, fair enough. I like it.
So you can go do your was it Billy Madison, cross me off your hit list now, and we'll see what happens. But good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll probably see you tomorrow. We'll definitely see you Saturday.
Good luck tonight, everyone.